Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down Wolves' defeat to Manchester City. So let's get straight into this one because there's a lot of talking points. We're just going to be breaking down the first half initially and then we're going to speak about the second half separately. So, I think it was very, very interesting what's gone on in that half, to be quite honest. I think Emmanuel Agbadou, for me, has had a very, very poor game. Now, of course, that's nothing to do with his rating, but just generally, he's been so poor. The fact that he's cleared the ball, numerous times is a positive. But as you can see there, errors leading to goals, and we have to speak about it. The pass is so poor into the midfielder's feet. It's just absolutely miles off. And I just think for me that it's a massively alarming thing because we've seen it so often. We saw it towards the end of last season. And we've seen it all throughout pre-season, as I've mentioned numerous times on these videos. Emmanuel Agbadou, for me, has been far too laboured throughout pre-season. And there's only so much stock you can put in pre-season, of course. But ultimately, when you're seeing it consistently in every pre-season game, really, he's making one stupid mistake or one error that could lead to a goal or something like that, something that could cost the team ultimately. And also playing as that central figure of the back line, he has to be getting those things right. And if he wants to clear it, clear it. If he needs to clear it, clear it. If he's under the cosh, just get rid of it. But I just felt like he didn't get rid of it, obviously, in that opportunity. I think he should just either get rid of it or just turn out and try and play it to someone else. And just generally, it was an awful pass. And to be honest, an awful half from him. Not just even that. Now, as I've said, 3 clearances in that half. I don't think it was, particularly unbelievable. I mean, Wolves were often clearing the ball because it was ultimately ending up to no one. Kiana Herver did the similar sort of thing on that side. But even again, for me, I don't think he's been awful. Some of his first touches have been pretty poor. But his runs have been really good. Just the timing of the pass to him hasn't been great. And I actually don't think he's been anywhere near Wolves' worst performer in that half. Jeremy Doku's just one of them players that he's just going to stand you up, and then just play it back to the fullback. And that's very much what happened in that half. And I think that's the best way you can deal with Jeremy Doku, to be honest. It just felt like one of them where he was never really advancing with the ball, never really threatening. He just sort of did what Jeremy Doku always does, to be quite honest. And then on the opposite side, Wolfer, I think it's a very interesting half from him. I think in instances, he's done really well. There's one when the ball gets put into the back post and he manages to head it clear and put it for a Manchester City corner. But ultimately, Oscar Bobb's had a lot of sort of, freedom on that right-hand side. Obviously, for the goal as well, the Tierney Reinders goal, he is obviously the one involved, but that's not ultimately Wolfer's responsibility in that set, in that play, really. But generally, I just think it's, again, not really an unbelievable performance for him, but not the worst. I think he has had good moments, like I say, against Oscar Bobb. But generally, Bob's just one of them players, again, that often wants to drift inside. And then, obviously, that responsibility is then passed over to either Totti or João Gomez in that sort of area. So, again, not really a terrible half, not a great one. Now, Jean-Rick Bellegarde, for me, is a very interesting one in that first half. I think he didn't really get on the ball enough, didn't really make much happen. The one time he did get on the ball, he did make something happen, which is the frustrating thing, is the fact that he hasn't really been on it. Obviously, that ball across for Larson, which is ultimately great defending from Ruben Diaz. And again, Wolves have threatened in that half, but ultimately, again, it just feels a bit sort of, Wolves, as soon as that first goal goes in, the heads drop. And that is the concerning thing. And that's when you see those teams that are struggling around the relegation spots. And I'm not getting too carried away, but I'm just making it very clear that, the teams that do go down every season, it gets to a point where they concede a goal, heads drop, 2 goes in, 3 goes in, 4 goes in, and it just spirals. And to be honest, I can see that happening with this squad. I don't think the mentality's been quite there throughout pre-season. And as I've said, it's not a massive thing. But ultimately, when you're going into the season, it becomes a massive thing. You have to have that mentality. And obviously, the second half will tell. I'm obviously recording this in the first half, and then I'll be doing the second half breakdown at the end of that one. But for me, it's been a very poor half. Now, one player that I really want to speak about is this man, Marshall Monetzi. Now, it's so frustrating. It really is, because he's getting in the right areas. He really is getting in the right areas. Obviously, puts the ball in the back of the net as well with a really good header. But he's just offside. Every single time Marshall Monetzi finds himself offside, as you can see here, if we just take a look at the stats, 3 offsides in that half, and I'm pretty sure all of them were in the span of 15 to 20 minutes. It felt like 6 or 7, to be quite honest. But just watching him, it was one of them that was really frustrating for me, because he is popping up in good areas, he is making the right runs, but he's just not timing them right. He's just not timing them right, and has been massively off it with regards to his timing. Now, as you can see here, he's only had 11 touches when he's actually got on the ball, which is pretty, ludicrous in itself. And generally, I always think, and I did say before, this video came out, I said Marshall Monetzi will play in this game. He will start this game because they want that work rate, and he has offered that. He's worked his socks off. He makes the runs. He closes people down. But ultimately, there's no quality. There's no quality, and also there's no ability to read. Manchester City often, play that offside trap, play that high line. When the ball goes into his feet or Larsson's feet, they always step up. So ultimately, he's got to learn that he's got to time his runs better. And to be fair, for a player that is 29 years old, you'd like to think he would know how to time his runs by now, being a professional footballer for around £15 million. But in terms of Marshall Monetzi, I don't want to seem like I'm heavily criticising just him, because I think not many players have been on it. And to be honest, it's been quite concerning. But for me, Marshall Monetzi is one of them. If he could time his runs, I said on Twitter, it'd be messy if he could time his runs. But in all seriousness, it's just a very, very frustrating half, I think, for most Wolves fans watching that, to be quite honest. Now, I also want to break down João Gomez. I think he's been really good. And I think that 6.5 is harsh. I think he's broke up play really well. He's tried to drive Wolves forward as much as possible, and he wants to get on the ball and make things happen, but he also has that leadership within him. And I think he's had a really, really decent half for a midfielder on a side that's losing, ultimately, and is not seeing much of the ball. But there's only so much he can do out of possession. And for me, João Gomez has done pretty much all he can out of possession to try and make it, ease that burden for the defence, ultimately, and also ease the burden for the players around him as well. Now, for me, Andre, again, another one, not been great, but also not been terrible. I think he's been okay when he's actually had the ball. He just hasn't had a hell of a lot of it, to be honest. And then Jose Sa, I think he's claimed his crosses well. His kicking wasn't terrible, really, in that half, and that was my, biggest criticism of Jose Sa. I really, I find it uncomfortable watching him kick the ball sometimes, but generally, a very, very sort of okay half from him. Now, if we just move on to briefly to speak about City, of course, James Trafford, not had a hell of a lot to do. When he has, he's been okay. Ruben Diaz, the same, hasn't really done a hell of a lot. Aït-Nouri, I'm not really sure how they're giving these ratings out. That's why I don't put stock into them, to be honest, but I'm not sure he's really done enough to warrant that. Anyway, Jeremy Doku, again, as I've said, he's just been, all bark, no bite, let's say. He's just been typical Jeremy Doku, to be quite honest. Typical Erling Haaland, scores a tap in, gets his goal on opening day, as he so often does. Nico Gonzalez, for me, I'm not particularly a big fan of him. I think he's been okay, but for me, the pick of the bunch in that Manchester City team has been Tierney Reinders. He gets a pre-assist for the Haaland goal, a lovely floated ball over. Funnily enough, Muller-Wolfer is in that area. Rico Lewis gets in behind him, puts it across the box, and it's easy for Haaland to tap in. And then, of course, he takes his goal so well. Now, Oscar Bob's got an assist for that, and it was a good run previously, and, he laid the pass off well. But I do think the pass was a bit heavy, and Reinders had a lot to do, but it was a really, really good finish. And then John Stones hasn't had too much to do, but, from around sort of that 20 to 30 yard area of Wolves' box, he's found himself there quite often and made things happen, floated a few crosses to the back post, that sort of thing. But generally, it's been a pretty poor half from Wolves, and obviously you will see my second half reaction just now, because obviously I am recording this in the first half. So let's see what my review is at full time. Not really sure we need to speak about the second half. We could just forget about it. It was absolutely abysmal, wasn't it, if we're being completely honest. 4-0. Ryan Cherky just had his way with him, really, didn't he? He comes on, just gets the ball, a few step overs, slots it into the bottom corner, easy as you like, and just generally just absolutely abysmal. Now, Tierney Reinders with one of the best Premier League debuts of all time, really. Absolute joke tonight. He was absolutely ridiculous. But in general, it was so flat. It was, the second half, there was about 10 fans left in the ground in about the 80th minute. It was absolutely dreadful. Now, as I've said, I'm a very positive person when it comes to Wolves, really. I want to see Wolves do well and all that sort of stuff as well. But there's just no sugarcoating any of that performance. Agbadou was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. That second half somehow was worse than his first half performance, which is almost miraculous, to be quite honest. I just generally think Wolves look massively concerning. I think, as I said in the first half, I didn't think Hervé was that bad. But if we look at it from the second half, he really wasn't great. I thought the subs were actually okay. And to be honest, I was a bit astounded at half-time. There was no positive substitutions. There was no changes whatsoever. I thought Fer Lopez could have got some minutes. When he come on, he actually looked sharp. Got a few shots off, sort of got into the right areas again. But generally, again, just flat. John Arias didn't do a hell of a lot, but again, I think added a bit more. Hwang, not a hell of a lot, but also not completely dreadful. Monetzi, the fact that he's still on the pitch to end the game is absolutely beyond me, to be quite honest. But Wolves, I do have massive, massive concerns. Now, this isn't meant to be a rant video. This won't be a rant video, and I'm not really going to break down the players in terms of statistics in the second half of this video. As you can see, clearly, I'm just going to speak open and honestly about how I viewed that game, and quite frankly, what on earth we've watched. It's just so poor, in almost every facet of the game. Wolves need players badly. The owners need to see that Wolves need players badly. And I'm not someone who overreacts or comes on bashing owners all of the time, but they need players desperately. I say it, quite regularly on this channel that I think the owners are not the only ones to blame. But when it comes to this, Jeff Shee, Fosun, they need to get their money out because Wolves need additions. And a few things I wanted to touch on as well. I thought Bueno was decent when he come on as well. I thought he made a few things happen. I think a bit more than Muller-Wolfer, which again, he needs time to adapt to the league. Bueno's already played in the Premier League numerous times. So again, you can sort of see that coming, hopefully, with time. But generally, Wolves need bodies. They need depth. They need quality. And they need help. They need a miracle, to be honest. And this is not an overreaction. I do think Wolves will be okay in games this season. But I am very, very concerned with the way that this performance has played out, with the way that the game's played out, to be quite honest. Tierney Ryan just picks up the ball and he just every time effortlessly glides through midfield. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's a bad footballer. I'm saying the fact that it's that easy for him to just walk. He just walks. Cherky just gets the ball and walks. Players just pick up the ball and walk. Oscar Bob walks. Just walks through the team. It's absolutely ridiculous. The lack of defensive ability, the lack of awareness, the lack of pressing, the lack of tracking back, it was just all massively off. The errors, constant mistakes. Herver's touches, as I break down in the first half of this video, Herver's touches just nowhere near it. Agbadou's passing miles off it. Jose Sarr was actually one of the best passers of the ball today, which is pretty impressive in itself. But generally, I think Wolves need help. Very, very serious help. And they do need bodies. They need to spend some money because they cannot go into the season with a squad as similar as this. Now, I know Chichua's going to come in, but that's not going to make a huge difference to the overall shape of the squad. It's just really not. Agbadou needs to fix up massively, in my personal opinion, and I hope that most of you agree with that, to be honest. I don't think this is a particularly outrageous thing to say, to be honest. I think he's absolutely miles off it. I think Totti Gomez was poor today again, just pretty nothing performance, really, especially from a captain, very uninspiring. And Manchester City, of course, are a quality side. Wolves won't be playing a side of their quality every week. But when you look at the likes of Sunderland hammering West Ham, who I think, good one, I think will be in trouble this season. Sunderland have absolutely wiped the floor with them. It wasn't even a contest. And Sunderland have come up with ambition, and they are going to seriously compete in this league this season. Leeds, another one. I'll be interested to see how it shapes up for them. But again, another team that have come in and seriously want to compete and fight for survival this season. Wolves need money. They need players. We've got the money actually, but they need to spend the money. They need players. They need perhaps a different system. They need to change something because there is a drastic thing needed. And they need to start getting John Arias and Fer Lopez and potentially Hugo Bueno on the pitch as well, because they made somewhat of a difference when they come on. John Arias less so, but I would like to see him get more minutes. And the fact that he hasn't even got, I think he's got, 15 minutes in total in that game? Maybe with extra time, probably about 20, 25. But I do think it's a massive cause for concern. I do hope most of you agree. I'm not trying to scaremonger anyone. My content isn't about that. But this is just a passionate sort of video speaking about how I think Wolves are desperately in need of additions going into this next few weeks, really, to be honest. They've got until the 1st of September, so they've got just over 2 weeks to get deals done, and I do think they desperately need them. Now, if you did enjoy this video, as much as it is a bit of a different video, the first half was quite reserved and quite relaxed from me. If you have made it to this point in the video, I really do appreciate you watching. I hope you haven't had to suffer too much watching that performance. If you've gone home early, fair enough to you, to be quite honest, but thank you all for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.